All right, welcome. We're going to wait a moment and let people get into the room. For the time being, please let us know where you're coming from. This is the weekly SteadiSchool webinar featuring Janice Arthur and Ilana Garrard. This week we're going to be talking about Women in Steadicam. Please let us know where you're coming from, and remember to click all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see. And thank you for joining us. We'll wait a couple of minutes to let everybody settle in.
Oh, Wales, Miami, North Carolina, LA.
I'm in LA. There's a bunch of LA people.
Portland, Argentina. Hey, Matthias.
Toronto.
Mexico.
India.
Wow.
Bay Area.
Atlanta, Vancouver, Philly.
We're so grateful for our global audience.
India, Egypt.
Paris.
Hey, guys. London.
Thank you, everyone, for
Perth.
joining us. As a reminder, there's a Q&A box. Please put your questions there and we'll try to get to them. We don't get to every question that people pose, but we're going to try and answer as many as we can in the time that we have.
Ooh, James Blythe is on. Yay, former Q&A panelist is watching. Hey, James. Also, if anybody misses any part of this session, you are welcome to view it at a later time on our SteadiSchool YouTube page.
I'll post the link to our YouTube page now so that if you wanted to go ahead and subscribe, we appreciate all subscribers and likers. Pasadena, all over the place. It's great. So
Great.
We'll start with the introductions. Carly, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi guys, I'm Carly Steichen. I'm a U.S. Navy vet, and I am now a SteadiSchool student, and I am a camera operator and cinematographer as well, and I'm just happy to be here and learn from these amazing women.
Thank you for joining us, Carly. Merlin, please let us know a little bit about you.
Hi everyone, my name is Merlin Showalter. I'm a Steadicam operator and a member of SteadiSchool, and very excited to be on this panel today and to hear all the wisdom that's about to be dropped.
Excellent. My name is Matthew Borick. I'm a Los Angeles-based camera assistant and Local 600 member, originally from Chicago. I was fortunate enough to actually have Janice come to my college and teach me about Steadicam while I was in school. And I'm very excited to have her back with us today. Jessica, if you would be so kind.
Hi, I'm Jessica Lopez. I'm a Los Angeles and Atlanta-based camera operator and Steadicam operator. I helped form SteadiSchool with Matt Borick. We want to, create a very welcoming and amazing community for everyone. And so far, we believe it's been working out. I have met Janice in the past a few times, and she's one of my idols, and I'm so glad she's here. And I've been following the path of Ilana Garrard for many years now, and I'm excited that she's joining us too. It's been wonderful to watch her journey. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jess. Chris, would you be so kind to tell us about yourself and about Learn Filmmaking?
Hi everyone, my name is Christiana Naid. I am an actress. I actually act for the SteadiSchool, so if you ever join a class, we'll have the pleasure to work together. I also work for the Learn Filmmaking Instagram page, so follow us. We are a community of filmmakers. We love to find new talent, so definitely find us, and hopefully we can share your work with the world. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for that, Chris. SteadiSchool was an idea of Jess's that she came to me about, and I'm very excited to be a part of it. We're trying to help, younger and less experienced members of the camera department to hone their skills through hands-on workshops where we pair operators and assistants together to do guided workshops. We feel like, direct mentorship is the best way to grow, and we're fortunate to be connected with some really great people who have allowed us access to their facilities and equipment so that we can run these workshops, and they're based around the idea of a oneer. Jess, would you please explain the oneer to our audience?
A wonder basically is telling a story in a single take. That could be on various camera platforms. We happen to enjoy doing it on a Steadicam, but within a single take that could last anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 hours. It just depends on what kind of shot you're going for, but you use the iconography of the frame, the architecture, the time and place, the wardrobe, the setting, the characters, everything to help tell a story in one single take. That's a winner.
Excellent. And last but not least, we are very excited to welcome our guests. Janice, would you please be so kind as to introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi. Yeah, Janice Arthur. I started in the early 80s. Took like the third Steadicam workshop they ever gave. And a friend at a TV station, I was doing some work at a TV station, just just barely out of college, and thought it would be a cool thing to put on my resume, and took the workshop and thought it was the neatest thing. Back then, it was just significantly older people than me in my 20s that were working on movies, and I thought movies were the coolest thing. And there were young people that were taking up this new technology, and it seemed like the coolest thing to get into. So I took the workshop and had a great time, and learned a ton. And nobody was talking about moving a camera back in those days. Nobody was talking about any of that stuff. So I took the workshop. There were a couple of women had done a few Steadicam shots. Sandy Sissel, this woman who's now in Australia or New Zealand. She was a young DP at the time. She had done a few shots with Steadicam, and there were a couple other random shots around that time, but I got a hold of a Steadicam and started doing it. So I was, in quote, the first full-time operator, woman Steadicam operator way back when. So back in 82, 83 is when I started. So that's me.
That's great. Thank you again for joining us. And Ilana, if you would please let us know a little bit about yourself.
Yes, hello everyone, I'm Ilana. I am a camera and Steadicam operator in London. I predominantly work in TV drama and features, and spent the first few years in a Steadicam slaving away on horrible, really hard music videos and kind of low-end sort of content, various stuff like that, which I'm sure many people have done, and probably many of our viewers have done that kind of stuff and are doing that kind of stuff. They can be really hard because you often don't have enough money and resources, and you want to do something really great. And especially on Steadicam, often if you're brought in as a Steadicam operator and things like that, then often there is no other grip equipment, so you are the only grip equipment there, no tripod or anything. So many hours non-stop. So yeah, you really learn to craft on that kind of thing, and that's sort of where I started. And yeah, now lucky enough to work in features and TV, which is great.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. At this time, I'm going to show everybody a little highlight reel from Janice's career. Hold on one second while I share my screen. And here we go.
Hey.
That's excellent. Jessica, if you'd like to lead us off, we have a few prepared questions for our guests. Oh, Jess, you're muted.
Sorry. Hey. Janice, how did you start finding work once you got a hold of your Steadicam? Like, how did you get yourself out there and network?
Initially, I was in Ohio. So Ohio in the 80s had no freelancing, very little work, certainly no features, and virtually no work. But at the same time, I was terrible because I had just gotten the thing and was still figuring it all out. Went to Chicago. It was the nearest big market that I could make sense out of, because in LA, there were all of 7 Steadicams in the entire LA area. Now there are tens of thousands. But the union was not open. The union was not, I'll call it welcoming. Even a male friend who's now ASC guy said they just shut the door and pulled the blind back then. They were not open to new members back then. Very few women, certainly. And we thought it was full. LA was, quote, full, because they hadn't figured out what to do with Steadicam back then. So Chicago had 2 or 3, 8 or 10 features a year go through there. And I thought, if nothing else, it's a good big market to start in. But in the end, you still had to get your name out there. All the folks that are listening, every city, state, area has guides. You know, there's the Illinois Film Guide, there's the Ohio Film Guide. Every state has a guide. And then some commercial ones get listed in them. The hard part, or the good part of Steadicam, is the price of admission is expensive equipment. So it's a small niche once you get in, because, oh, that person has this gear, and then you're known for the 2 or 3 or 8 or 10 operators in your area that actually have the gear. So that was the initial deal. Eventually, I started doing some ads in some magazines and stuff, but that's way later and a whole different dynamic of getting work. But you get on one job, you get to the next job. So that was the easy way to network. But initially, getting in the guides is a really good thing. And of course, it's free.
Yes, we love free. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Oh, thank you.
That's great. So I'm going to show another video. It's some highlights from Ilana's career before we move on to a question to her. Hold on one second. And here we go.
Very nice.
Yeah.
It's quite old, that stuff now. It's like, ooh.
A lot of crane work there, Ilana. I get afraid of heights. That stuff freaks me out sometimes.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, it is. Yeah, especially when it's windy. It's like, oh, am I? Ooh.
yeah, you made it look easy. All right. Matt, you got another one for us?
No, you know what, Ilana? I'm curious how you got your start in Steadicam and if you had any mentors in the beginning of your career.
Not really. I went to film school, and I studied cinematography and documentary at uni, and did all kinds of stuff there, like shot on film, which was great. I was also the first year where the uni got the first Alexas that had come out, the Alexa Classic that had come out, and so we sort of shot digitally on Alexas as well. And then when I left, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I kind of had seen a guy a couple of years above. He'd got a little Steadicam and he'd been kind of doing various things with it, and I was like, that'd be pretty cool to do that, and to kind of shoot my own documentaries was the idea, because I was like, oh, I hate it when documentaries are shot really badly and they're all wobbly, and so I was like, oh, it'd be cool if I shoot some documentaries and it like looks really nice, and so that was sort of the idea. And then I just kind of got into it. I was using a tiny little Steadicam with like 5D at that point, like a little Merlin, Tiffin Merlin rig. And really hard to balance, because it wasn't really it's like it's not really a Steadicam. It's like it's got kind of weights in different areas and it's a bit weird, but I made my first show reel with it though, and so I kind of I started just doing stuff, and then because I had friends who were at film school, and then they knew other people, etc., it was kind of like I sort of started getting things here and there, and little gigs, and like I said before, a lot of them were really awful and really hard, but of course you say yes to anything and everything. I was also actually at the time, because I wasn't really making any money doing it, I was also just working, I wasn't working as an assistant, because I knew that I just wouldn't be a very good assistant. So I didn't do that, and I was very I kind of at that point I was like, I know that I want to kind of pursue this, and so that's what I wanted to spend more time just in the rig and doing it. So I was doing kind of crappy side jobs to like pay the rent basically, whilst practicing and whilst saying yes to anything. And but it was very much just, I mean, I had like, you know, friends and stuff and family who encouraged me, but I didn't have anyone, I didn't really know anyone like because I didn't have that much like experience assisting. I didn't really know that many people in the industry at like certainly at higher end. And so kind of like very much just me learning by myself and learning from failures and success sometimes, and then it wasn't really till later that I met other operators, so yeah, really kind of just going for it, I guess.
No, that's great. Oftentimes the best experience is doing, and so that makes a lot of sense that you just threw yourself into it and found your way as you went.
Yeah, and I was doing like anything. I mean, I'd do anything so that, well, obviously, especially so that I could get paid to be in the rig, but so that I didn't have to do the crap jobs to pay the rent. But I'd do things like I was like, how can I meet more people? How can I get more work doing this? And a friend of mine was like, oh, why don't you go to like one of those wedding expos and give your card out to the people doing like the videographers doing stuff. So I was like, okay, great idea. So I got a ticket to this wedding expo, and so went around to all the booths that had the videographers. I was like, look, I'm a Steadicam operator. Here's my card if you want to hire me. And I actually got work from doing it. So it was things like that I kind of did, and yeah.
So you know all the secrets to networking,
I know
then.
the secrets.
That's great.
Yeah.
Chris, do you perchance have one from the audience for us?
Yes, so I have one from two ladies actually. Alexandra and Mariana are asking a very similar question. I know that Jess and I have spoken about this topic before, but how do you ladies, like what is the biggest challenge that you have to go through as being a woman operator in this field?
That's a great question, Janice. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it first.
Okay, it, I'm trying to frame this. Okay, so perspective-wise, I started out doing 1 million industrials because that was the, companies used to spend a ton of money pre-internet days in doing videos showcasing their companies. Okay, so they spend, even in 80s money, they'd spend, you know, $50,000, which today's world, that'd be, you know, 200 grand, doing videos. So we do these videos. So I did thousands of those. In relatively large crews, you know, 10, 15 people, makeup, hair, all that kind of stuff, 5-ton grip trucks. I had the good fortune to work with 90% of the guys were fabulous. So it was never an issue that, oh, you're a woman. In fact, it kind of became just call Janice and you become the one word name that people would hire. So that was good. The way I got, I'll call it credibility on the set initially when I first started, because there was a bit of, this is this strange device. Does this person know what the heck they're doing? And by the way, it's technical. Do women know technical stuff? And so when I would walk on the sets in the early days of video cameras, of all things, they had two types of tubes in the cameras. And one was Steadicams and one was Plumicons. And they'd always have an on-set engineer back in those days. So when I got introduced, hi, this is Bob, our engineer, I'd say, oh, does this camera have Steadicams or Plumicons? And they'd go, what? She knows about tubes? Wow, okay. So I had a little, but I set it up that way. I knew I had some credibility. And then, you know, you can't ask the meaning of life, but you can ask a pointed question that says, I'm here to work and I know what I'm doing. And every time they'd look at you like, whoa. And then of course you'd throw out the one sentence response like, those Steadicams always have streaks when you hit a bright source, don't they? Oh yeah, and those engineers would agree with you. And you'd get a little bit of credibility enough to get, hey, I do know what I'm doing. And you'd get enough going that you could get the rig built. And I always told assistants, if I'm gonna be nervous or a jerk for the first shot, I gotta show them that I know what I'm doing. And then the temperature in the room goes down because you've proven that you know what you're doing, okay? So sure enough, you know, that was a little bit of a trial by fire that I used to do initially on jobs. After a while, you get well enough known, you didn't have to do that. The summary of this question is 99% of the guys had women, their spouse, their wife, their cousin, their whoever was out there working in the business world too. And they didn't want them abused or mistreated either. So in many ways, they were your best advocate because, you know, and again, there weren't many instances of anybody being, I'll call it a jerk or an idiot or inappropriate or something. But you did have some allies that would help you. And so that's now, fast forward to now, with everybody being sensitive, let's include more people we haven't seen on the set. You get more and more of the advocates out there, I think now. So in mine is, I think, a hopeful story of it may happen. I'm sure it happens at some level. I hear some odd stories here and there. You hear stories, that some people will share. But it's, I think, largely helpful. Were they seeking out women back then? No, because they would hire the same people they used to hire. There was one DP that got an award a few years ago, and he had his speech. They published the speech. He said, I was trying to pay my bills. I was trying to pay my mortgage. I was putting my kids through school. I was doing all that. And he, by default, would just hire the same guys he had hired on the last job. And that's, I think, the biggest hurdle is making people change their behaviors. Hey, instead of the same gaffer I had and the same assistants and the same whatevers, let's mix it up a little. And it was a wonderful letter that, or speech that he wrote that, I'm not guilty of being bad. I'm just guilty of being in my world and picking who is easy. And so I'm not sure that answered the question, but in terms of helpfulness, I've had a tremendous amount of, I don't want to man bash, other crew members be very helpful.
That was excellent. That was an amazing response. Ilana or Jess, would you like to offer your perspectives as well? I would love to hear them.
Real quick, that was Alan Queso ASC's speech. I'm trying to find the link to post it here for everybody to see. I worked with him on The Rookie, and which was the job he did after that speech. And he did everything he could to abide by what he said. A lot of people did what they could to stop him. But I'm a result of his help. A lot of us are. I'm a result of your efforts too. I know Ilana is as well. What you said about understanding those components of the tubes, it's like, that is true. That is a big part of our jobs as women in Steadicam is we need to know mechanics. We need to know electronics. Those are conversations women don't have with other women. It's life. It's our programming. It's the way it was. So when you come in with that knowledge and you understand and you have workarounds and you have fixes and you have solutions and, you're able to do your job. Yes, that is how you gain credibility as a Steadicam operator, is by understanding the gear that you're using, about trying to solve the issues. And, it might not be your issues. It's the issues when the camera gets on the gear. It's the issues around you as an operator. It's all those things that come together is what shows your true leadership when you can handle it in those moments. So, for me, it definitely wasn't easy. I've probably had more horror stories, and I think it's just because I put myself out there a little bit more. There's this line where I find that women and maybe camera, you want to put yourself out there, but you're kind of a little bit whether or not you should put yourself out there, because it's hard. You don't see many people like you putting themselves out there. So it's like, how do you make those kind of decisions? And so I think that's been my battle the entire career, is getting myself out there, marketing myself, I had a DP come up to me once after I did a shot, and he ran over after I did a competent, good shot. And he ran over, he's like, I would have hired you earlier, but I didn't know you existed. Like, that phrase alone has never left my head, ever. They didn't know I existed. Like, guys, I'm sorry, guys, don't get that question. They don't hear that phrase. So it's like you constantly have to prove yourself. All right, I'm going to stop rambling. Ilana, I feel like you have something to say on the matter.
I think I agree. Ultimately, it's like you do a good job and people will take you seriously. I've had loads of times where it's been either it's a high profile actor or it's a director or DP, someone who vaguely will have a go at you if they don't think you've done a good job, but or who maybe want to warn you. I've had a very big name actor, the first day that he met me, asked me how tall I was, because he doesn't like short operators because they look up his nose, and it was very, you know, like that with me. So sort of generally all sorts of things, but leaning to questions that lean towards like, are you competent at doing this? And as soon as you know, they watch playback or watch the take or whatever, and they see that you are completely capable of doing the job, then they kind of, then that hopefully is it. And then I try to, beyond that, I always just try to be myself, really. And I've always kind of maintained that it's really important to like, for me to be myself and to not feel like I should like be one of the boys. I mean, I grew up with 2 older brothers, so I'm definitely not, so I'm sort of used to that anyway, but I think that held me in good stead actually anyway. But I've never wanted to change who I am or my personality to fit someone else's idea of what I should be. I had a teacher at uni, a female teacher actually, who, after I did a presentation once with some of my female classmates, she said to us that we were too girly and that we would never make it in the industry and we couldn't be like that. And I was like, that is such a load of shit. and that's why I've always maintained, no, I'm just going to be me, and I'm not going to put up another character, another pretense, and I'm just going to show people that I can do the job that I can do. And it's kind of worked out for me so far. So that's kind of the way that I deal with it. And I think, yeah, but yeah, ultimately I've definitely come up against people who, for whatever reason, of course I don't know what reason that would be, whether it's because I'm a woman or because I'm new, or they don't know me or whatever. Of course you have to prove yourself in some way or another to start with.
Can I jump in here?
Absolutely, yeah.
The girly discussion Ilana just alluded to, in the days, you could not wear a sleeveless shirt on set. There's some bit of a story of an assistant woman showed up, and this is certainly a number of millions of years ago, and she wore a sleeveless blouse, and people got all nuts, and people were called. And now today I show up on a set and skirts, and there's sleeveless, and there's midriffs, and there's all these things, and I'm just shaking my head at the flip of you could, God forbid you were girly back then, now you can be girly and have that instance not ruffle any feathers or even be noticed. So anyway, it's just funny how it's flipped. But at one point, the next time you walk on a set and somebody's sleeveless, just think about that.
Yeah, and Janice, totally, you being there at that time paved the way for people like me who I am able to kind of like be the way that I want to be, and I don't think I would have been able to probably do what I do and be the way that I am back in the 80s, and that's a sign of the times as well, is that I am able to kind of just be who I am.
I was chicken, I never wore sleeveless. So you wore the cargo shorts and the whatever, you had the costume of your department, and it really was the costume of your department. Dressed one way. I knew one assistant that he was a young intern. He showed up and he had a Carhartt jacket on, and one of the assistants turned to this kid. It was brand new. He was an intern, brand new, and said, camera department doesn't wear Carhartt. They wear, and it was just, I'm like, really? This kid has been on a set for all of an hour, and you're tortured him about his jacket, and oh, that's not what you wear. And he was half joking, but he was like, well, that's not what the camera department wears. There was one assistant who was notorious. Everything he owned had North Face on it. That was the costume of your department. And everybody laughingly made fun of it, but it was very successful.
I definitely think that is I mean, I don't know about the US, but in the UK, we definitely have costumes per department.
Yeah.
It's very amusing. And even names, I'd go as far to say, is there's, you know, lots of Daves and Grips and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, you know, think of, you know, if you, the question before was about blending in, and whether that's your deal or not, I don't know. But initially, the first day on set may not be the day to wear, you know, most free-flowing outfit. You know, if you're trying to get into the mix, it might not be a bad idea to have the costume of your department, and what you default to. And it also is not terrible. I'll say it's not terrible because it is useful and functional, and you're there to work. So at some point, if it does become something beyond that, it is, remember why you're there. If you're there to flirt because you're wearing some outfit, you're not doing anybody a service, let alone yourself.
Yeah, definitely. But I think ultimately it just comes down to like being yourself, though, like whatever that is, I think. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, my thing on set is like, yes, I wanna look nice. I wanna feel like a woman sometimes. But as soon as I put that rig on, everything goes out the window.
Yeah,
I dress for the job, and at the end of the day, hair's everywhere. I'm drenched, you know, holes in my shirt. You know, that's
absolutely, yeah.
No matter what, that's what happens. It just owns me.
Definitely.
I stopped caring.
Although I do remember on when I did my course, and I was like asking, oh, what do you do when you get really sweaty? And they were like, oh, well, whatever, I just live with it. But I definitely always have, like, just in case it gets really bad, like a change of a t-shirt, I'll go in the honey wagon. Like if I'm really sweaty and stinky and there's like 5 minutes, I'll be in a now. I feel like I'll change my t-shirt.
Yeah. The guys don't think like that. They love that.
And then after a good shot, everybody wants to hug you or something. It's like, oh, you're just squishing that more on me and you.
Yeah.
That was funny.
No, this is great. I really appreciate the earnesty of this conversation, and I'm happy that, you know, femininity is now a source of strength, whereas before it wasn't seen that way. I think that, you know, I'm glad that, you know, it's a sign of the times, as Ilana had said, the change that's happened.
I like seeing more colors on set. It's nice. I mean, we're all used to wearing the default show blacks.
Yeah.
It's like slowly peeking out of our shell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
My thing is wearing boiler suits because I find it the most like practical for operating.
Like the jumpsuits?
Yeah, so good. It's like I can sit in any position. I can crouch on the floor with like a camera and a bag and like, you know, kind of be in a weird position in a corner with my bum in the air or something and just not have any worries, you know.
I might have to look into the jumpsuits.
It's very good. It's all I wear on set now.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, I initially did it because I found it quite. Yeah, there you go. It was actually a Steadicam reason. Was that the vest used to just really dig into any trousers that I wore. It didn't really matter what I wore because I would find the seam would always dig into me and I'd always bruise. And then I was like, God, I just need something that's like not got a seam, that's just like all the way down. And then I figured out that boiler suits were a thing, and I've never looked back, guys. I highly recommend it.
It's no waistband. Is it no waistband?
Yeah, exactly. So you don't have to worry about that annoying bit on your hip.
I have to say, I've tried that a few times and it was horrible for exactly the other reason. The waist helped support the vest, and I've had a few bruises over the years, but managed to kind of shape the vest. And I always tell people, in the personal opinion, was have something with a waistband. Sweatpants, I tell them, are terrible, and I have no sweatpants or any of that. But I love the idea of the single piece unit clothes.
Yeah, you never have to think about it in the morning. You know, you just have your 5 or 6 if you're doing 6 day weeks, and then you're done, you know, and then Sunday you wash them all and you go again.
Yeah, you tend to see, you can see your skin and your body change along that waistline too if you don't have the right pants on underneath the vest. I've had rashes from the elastic.
Yeah.
It gets caught in the wrong area, and then you're stuck in that position for a few hours because it's a really tough shot. You're not taking off the rig, you're not taking off the vest, you're going at one after another, and then when you get a chance to go to the bathroom, you finally can fix it.
Yeah, but it's painful. It can be really. It's not the rig that's painful. It's just because your seam is wherever it is like in the wrong place, and it's really painful. It's like,
absolutely, yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes even a bra strap can dig into your shoulder underneath the vest, and then you have a bunch of bruising, and
you've got to be very considerate of your underwear, people.
Yes. Sadly, that is a part of our job. It's our undergarments. I had to switch all my undergarments to tailor to how they fit underneath the bra. I mean, underneath the vest.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Women camera problems. #.
The big takeaway from this workshop is attention to your undergarments.
No lacy underwear, guys. It's just a big no-no. It's not going to do you any favors.
On that note, Carly, do you perchance have a question prepared for Janice?
Yeah. What was your first big break as a operator, where you finally thought that you've made it, that you've made something of yourself in the industry?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm not sure that I have a specific one. Certainly Groundhog Day was like a big movie, and you were hoping that would springboard you to all kinds of things and stuff. But I don't think I had a specific breakthrough. You get what, the community knows you worked on X. So the next job you show up on, how was that one? How was it? You'd get some kind of screen time with your pals on the set as you described whatever it was that you had just worked on. And you'd hope that would springboard you to the next job. I don't think I've had an official one. This NBA Entertainment, The Last Dance project was phenomenal. We did it in 97, 98, which is ancient history to you guys. But it was going to come out as a feature. The footage was fabulous, all that. And you kept hoping and hoping and hoping it would be released. Decades later, was never released. So the project you think is going to springboard you forward may never come to fruition. So the sad reality, if anybody is looking for that moment in their career, it may just be a slog of everyday jobs, putting together enough to live on that hopefully propels you forward. The suggestion that you move up in the world, I had done thousands, I'll dovetail this into your question, thousands of industrials. And I would go home, make a fine living, all that kind of stuff, worked a lot of days. But I was very angry. You'd go home at the end of the day and you'd be angry. And I was like, why am I so angry? And I finally realized that I was learning nothing. And I had done it, and I had done a million of them, and I could walk around that table till I turned blue with my eyes closed and get the shots. But you can't, I'll call it, piss off your employers when they call, because they just calling you to hire you for the next time. And overnight I said, okay, what if I just raise my rate? And I raised my rate by 1/3. Okay, and the next phone call came, and I told them my rate, and they didn't even notice. And I'm like, holy cow, that was really stupid. I was undercharging. Okay, And then I thought, well, let's push it a little more. And I pushed the rate a little more. And okay, you get a phone call. Hey, can we use you? Hey, I've had to up my rate. I'd love to work on your project. Because if you say the other way around, hey, are you available Tuesday? And you say, well, what's the project? They smell a rat, or at least they used to. And then suddenly, yikes, you're not good enough, or you're too good for my project. But if you, hey, I'd love to work on your project next Tuesday, but I've had to raise my rate. I'm sorry, I do have to enforce, well, we were expecting the old rate. Well, I'd love to work on it, but I can't, okay? Because that person will get the around the world job. But with any luck, your stock value has gone up a bit because now you're working on better, in quotes, better jobs. And then you can select what you want. And it worked out, I'll call it wonderfully, because suddenly I started working on better jobs. And that was a huge plus. Maybe I wasn't working as many days, but I was working on better jobs, and the grips and whoever else were on those jobs would go back and filter the info to the lower jobs. Hey, I just worked with Janice on this. She was on this commercial. Wow, she's on commercial, she's on this, she's on feature, she's on something else. And it kept from slamming the current employer, and it kind of fed you into another environment. I don't know if that would work today, but it has a good shot at it. But again, when somebody calls you and says, what about next Tuesday? Oh, I'd love to, but if you fish around for, is this job good enough for me? You end up offending them because clearly it's good enough for them. So that was my way to work through the moving up discussion. I don't know if that answered your question. Cool.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you for sharing. Again, amazing perspective. Merlin, do you have a question prepared for Ilana?
Sure do. Do you have any recommendations for people trying to move up in the camera department?
I think, I mean, again, this is speaking from perspective in the UK. I think our industry is like a bit of a smaller bubble here. I'm not sure, but I think maybe it's a smaller bubble. I would say definitely don't be shy to like talk about your ambitions, because I know a lot of people are actually really shy to talk about their ambitions. My friend Hannah, who I've been teaching SteadiCam to for many years now, she started as, when I first met her, she was a trainee. She's now a big shot loader. She's amazing. And she is also going to be an amazing SteadiCam operator, already very much on her way. But she sort of said to me when we were working together that she sort of she'd always been interested in SteadiCam but didn't quite realize that it was an option. And then she saw me. I was the first woman she'd seen in a SteadiCam, and she'd sort of expressed her interest to me in that. And so for me, I was instantly, I mean, I'm always super happy to teach. I love it. And I love passing on information. And I think you should always pass down information and teach. I think that's, you know, why people are trainees and loaders. People want to step up. And so as operators, you have a lot of knowledge that they don't have. And I do think you should share that. And anyway, with Hannah, for example, she told me what she wanted to do. And so I instantly was like, yeah, great. I'll, you know, take you under my wing, and started teaching her. And she's, you know, doing little promos and stuff now, which is great. But I think, yeah, I suppose if you're really wanting to step up, I think it's being vocal about it ultimately, and keeping with the people who, you know, are, you like working with, and building on those relationships really. because they'll want you around as well. They'll want you around and they'll want to help you. If you're you're telling them about your ambitions, they're going to want to help you ultimately.
That's great. Thank you so much.
On a similar note, would you tell us about Women Behind the Camera and how you got started with the group?
Yeah, so yeah, for those who don't know, I co-run a small organisation called Women Behind the Camera. It's a UK-based sort of organisation and website. Oh yes, our lovely logo that my friend designed.
Oh, that's very clever.
Yeah, it was good. So basically, I had, like I said, I'd been sort of teaching Hannah, and I'd been teaching a few other women who'd been asking for my advice, and it was just kind of me having them over at my flat. I had little like practice camera, getting them on the rig, teaching them when I could, and in a way that I could, just being myself. And so for those few years, I've been thinking, I really want to do this in a way that's has a bigger reach and reaches people that I don't know who are potentially, really ready to step up and need that. And so I approached Lucy Bristow, who is an amazing operator, absolute legend in the UK. She's brilliant. And I said to her, would you want to help me with it? And with the ACO, so the ACO is the Association of Camera Operators in the UK, do you think they would want to get involved as well? And she had at the same time been actually organising a database for us in the UK. So it's a database of female camera technicians, so camera and grip and lighting. And we've got DITs as well, and specialist camera operators. They'd been sort of Lucy and Olga Zeliger had been working on this literally just at the same time that I'd asked Lucy, so it kind of all coincided at the same time. But they were doing that, and so we came together to say, well, why don't we sort of do this together? We'll create this database, and then we'll start doing some workshops. And so it started sort of, I think, like, we had that first meeting, I want to say January last year, and then they sort of got the database together. I built the website. I'm not really a website designer, but I sort of put it together as best I could, and we got the ACO involved and had our first workshops. So we did crane workshops, so we had Warner Brothers Studios give us everything. We had super techno cranes and all kinds of stuff, amazing operators coming in, and Sean Savage and Philip Sindel, amazing operators. Sean Savage is the main camera operator from Game of Thrones, and he's been amazingly supportive with us. And so yeah, we've had Peter Robertson then did the Steadicam one with me, who's also an amazing operator. And so yeah, we've had a lot of people kind of very much just throwing offers at us to do things for free, and it's all completely for free. We just want to help those women who are ready to step up, and we want to actively make those changes and not just talk about it. We want to really actively make those changes in the industry in the UK. So that's what we've been doing.
Cool.
That's really awesome, Ilana. Thank you for contributing and giving back. And I want to say that needs to be a theme, a good theme between the three of us on this panel right now as Steadicam camera professionals. And Janice, you're ahead of us on the teaching game. So many operators owe a lot of their journey to you, and I mean, not like in debt, but in the fact that you brought this excitement and this love of this craft into so many people's lives. It's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I'll interject there. In its infancy, I mean, filmmaking, let's say from the 80s onward, was, relatively big video cameras, certainly huge film cameras, and you were stuck with tripods. I mean, unless you had a substantial budget, you did not have a dolly, because you couldn't deal with it on a tiny little dolly because little cameras didn't exist. So the idea of walking around with a camera that wasn't bouncing all over, because we all knew handheld stunk, was just tremendous. And we all kind of went, wow, this is a whole lot of fun. This is like what adulthood's supposed to be like. It's not supposed to be, you know, accounting and boring stuff. And so it like you guys, we naturally gravitated to this thing, which was the dance partner walking around with it, and it worked. And in its infancy, it was a terrible device that we've all the operators have forced it into this device that I think nobody expected it to be this elegant and this useful and this pervasive in the industry. In the early days, Hollywood really did not embrace it because they didn't know what to do with it. And, you know, operators didn't embrace it because they were with their traditional stuff, but you couldn't put a sync sound camera on the original Steadicam because they weighed too much. They were just massive. And then the BLs came along and they started to be useful on Steadicam. So anyway, it just, as perspective goes, it's interesting that we all got here for the same kind of general reason of this very elegant device. But, you know, in its earliest days, it was just goofy hard because nothing about it was seamless or a system or any of those other things that it is now. So anyway, that's my contribution.
Yeah, actually the rigs fly themselves. We just wear them now.
Don't say that. It makes it sound too easy.
Yeah.
It is not that easy.
No, it's not.
I've never even put on a rig, and I know it's not that easy.
That easy. Yeah, it's not that easy.
I've actually been trying to teach my boyfriend, who's a DOP, Steadicam in lockdown, and he did, like, on the second day, he was like, yeah, I'm not putting that on again.
That's great. Chris, do you have one from the audience for us?
Yes, I have one from Cynthia Hilland. Excuse me if I pronounce your last name wrong, but she's asking if you can talk about the difficulties with maintaining relationships with family, friends, romantic, etc. Have you found yourself having to pick between having a family or having a career?
Who was that to?
The panel, everyone.
You guys.
Yeah, everyone as a whole, though. Yeah, I think everyone has their own perspective on this, and I'd like to hear what everybody has to say, because it will be different for each person.
I can tell you right now, it's very short. I chose a career, which part of me wishes I might have chose. I wish I could have chose different. I really don't know. At the point of no return now.
Obviously when we're working, we don't have a social life at all, and that's just the way it is. But I think our like on-set family become that social life, of course, and I don't know about how much you guys do it, but you know, especially if you're working away, sort of, you know, you have the drinks after work and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I've always maintained that it's really, really important for me to take time off in between jobs to spend time with my family and friends, because I think I would find it very difficult otherwise. And it's fortunate that doing Steadicam operating, you are earning a wage that means you can take time off in between jobs if you want to. And so for me, that's always been a hugely important part of it. And I would never, I've never worked myself so far that I then, I guess, feel like distant from the people that I don't want to feel distant from. And yeah, I think it is a really, really hard balance. No one's ever going to tell you that it's not a hard balance, because it is, because the job is all encompassing, and it is draining, and it's physically draining, and it's mentally draining. And even when you do have time off, you probably just want to lie in bed for like ages and not really talk to anyone as well. So it's a tough juggling act really, but yeah, that's always
I'll throw in again the arc of perspective. And I've made good and bad choices. So you can, personal life, you make good and bad choices, but that's the same with everything. Okay, so today's workers, whether you're an office worker or any other, they expect a lot of outside of work hours work. They expect a ton of commitment to that job. So now a spouse who may not be in the industry can see why you have to do 60-hour weeks because they're doing 50-hour weeks. They just may be doing some of them at home on their laptop, but they're still getting up at 2 a.m. and checking their emails and working on projects on the weekends and stuff. The idea when I started that I could find someone that you'd say, honey, I've been offered a 3-month movie. You have to take care of the kids because I'm going to make a ton of money on this movie and we need the money. I'm going to be gone for 3 months. You take care of the kids. Was not a conversation you could have back then. Because the husband, of course, said, well, I have to work. Who's going to take care of the kids? Now, I've actually had a conversation with a young lady, let's say late 30s. They have a couple of kids. She was offered an out-of-town job. Hey, honey, we should, work this out. And the spouse said, okay, I'll stay home and watch them and man the house while you are gone. And that conversation could never have happened.
Yeah.
So, like, the good and the bad, this is one of those positives that, hey, the bank account is empty and you can go away and make X amount for 3 months. And it is also your life's work. They're not as dismissive of either the financial or the commitment you've put into it. Certainly it helps if you have someone that understands the business or whatever. But having someone outside the business was a conventional job during a pandemic is not a bad thing either. So like everything else, there's nothing black and white in some ways about this. There's the gray area, and people are finding, I think, better ways to process how can we make this work. So I think on a hopeful note, it can, but I'm also the poster child for having successful relationships and non-successful ones. But that has, I think, less to do with Steadicam than just, finding the right person. So in a true to life discussion, it is working out in a lot of ways. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank all three of you. This is
I was kidding.
This is a to the heart type of question, but it means a lot because we have challenging careers that are very consuming. They consume our time, emotion, and energy, and nobody does it the same, and no one has the same successes as others. And I strive to have a certain balance that I don't maintain, but I still strive for it. And
I keep way back when some people kept saying this industry is so different than all the other industries, and over time I started going, if you're a doctor and you're spending 60 hours a week at the hospital and your spouse is sitting at home, honey, why aren't you home? Why aren't you home? Why don't I mean as much to you as medicine? Why is it you're leaving at 2 a.m. to take care of Mrs. Smith? I don't know Mrs. Smith. There are similarities in other industries, and if you think we isolate ourselves, it will make it harder to to understand ways that it can be thought of similarly. I hate that word.
Okay. Like night workers as well. Like if you work nights and your partner doesn't, like, people do it all the time, and yeah, totally.
Yeah. So as there are other industries that are horrible or have demanding commitments on people's time and energy too.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you all for sharing. Jess, at this time, do you have another question for Janice?
Yes, actually, I'm on this path myself, Janice, and I was curious to know, like, how did you embrace the idea of, or get into the idea of being an educator for camera and cinematography and Steadicam?
Okay, so this is an economics / variable schedule thing, because you are trying to stay. The worst part of this industry, I think, is that I did a hairstylist back then. The worst part of this industry, I think, is that it's insidious, because you can have tremendous amount of time off, and then if the phone rings tomorrow, you could be gone for instantly. Okay, that's the hard part of this industry, which to embrace some of the differences here, you do have to think of things that have flexibility. And also, we're all used to making X amount of money, and then you go into I have all kinds of experience here, I have no experience here. If I want to start another career in my off time, well, you're going to be down here. Teaching from its very beginning, the very famous Ted Churchill, he had done everything and a lot of things, and started being interested in teaching. He started operators thinking about that, okay? Teaching has the option of it being, as they used to say, a livable wage of some amount of reasonable expectation for your knowledge that you already have. The hard part of, the hard part of transitioning to another career is that you're going to have to put up with the growth factor. So teaching, and the other part of Steadicam is we all want to help the next generation, and we also want to not be too noble about it, but try and make sure that whatever stupid mistakes we made, maybe the next group is not going to make. So that's kind of where I went. And it also is a natural, there are a lot of people in the film business that transition to education. But somewhat financial, somewhat, how can I use my current knowledge base and impart it to somebody else? In the early days, we all thought, why is it somebody is, teaching us? Aren't they making their own competition? Not really. The answer is not really. You're teaching people a million things, but they have no experience, they have no perspective, and they certainly are, I'll call it, kind of rotten initially. And so we could teach them everything we know, and they'd still have to learn it for themselves once they kind of get the bug to keep going.
Thank you very much for that, for that information. I think it's definitely important to give back. We learn so much, we're able to experience so much, we're able to have these opportunities. I think that it's always good karma. It's always, Yeah.
And you get a bit of I remember when I did that, moment, and you get to relive that "thank God I'm over that stage" moment when you see someone else make those mistakes. Like,
yeah, totally. But you also learn a lot yourself. Like when you teach others, you're like, oh, and they're like, oh, how do you do that? And I'm like, how do I normally do that? I'm like, I don't know. I don't really think about it. I don't know. What do I'm not sure.
yes, that's absolutely an excellent point. My theory is that when you can say it to someone else, you understand it better.
So totally, yeah. Because there's so many things that you kind of just do and you don't really think about the thing that you're doing. It's become second nature, or you know, whatever it is. And yeah, as soon as someone actually asks you about it, it really makes you rethink it and like I said, understand that better. Totally.
Cool.
I think being an educator too, I think the students are actually changing my life. I think they're bringing out a better, more, I don't know, leader of Steadicam. I mean, Merlin and Carly are on here, and even Chris. I just dealing and being a leader and understand things, giving them tips and tricks, things that I've learned. You know, I guess I will have a better chance than I did. I want them to, you know, be able to put fires out quicker, or be able to solve things, you know, a little bit faster, to be able to make their name a little bit easier, you know, just trying to help make the site a little bit more common and, you know, friendly for people to try and enter this profession.
Yeah. Cool.
Matt?
That's great. So, Ilana, I'm curious, because you mentioned it while doing your own little bio. Do you feel like your work on music videos helped you when you got the call for the film yesterday?
I mean, doing all that stuff helps anyway, because it builds your stamina. Actually, it did in a way for yesterday, because Danny Boyle, loveliest man alive, but he works really, really hard. So I didn't do the whole film, but the time that I did spend on it, I was shooting at a festival in the UK, Latitude Festival, and Danny is really funny, being like the nicest man in the world. He didn't want to spoil anyone's time at the festival, so we sort of had to just, you know, keep going with shots, even if people kind of interrupted. We were doing these sort of like long walk and talks and stuff like that, and I mean, there was one particular. We had 2 Steadicams actually at that festival at the same time, and then a third camera as well. And there was this bit where he was like, yeah, just carry on walking, just carry on. We sort of carried on walking around. I think it was like in low mode or something as well, and it was like, oh my god, and it was like going uphill and downhill, and he was like, yeah, just carry on. And because he's the nicest man in the world, you're like, oh yes, Danny, yeah. But yeah, I mean, certainly for that kind of stuff, the fact that when you've done music videos, you're in it, in the rig, like all the time. But I just did last summer, I just shot a musical called Everybody's Talking About Jamie, which is a musical that was on the West End here, really successful musical, and the creatives got the funding to make the film, which is great, and we had a great time. But that was definitely great, because I mean, we basically did loads of music videos plus, you know, the other stuff in between. but certainly that was useful for that, because yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Have you found other ways to build up your stamina, or do you feel like just working is the way?
I definitely, you know, as much time in the rig as possible. I'm sure Janice and Jess will agree with me. It's just like time in the rig, and you just have to get used to it. Your body gets used to it, your muscles get used to it, and you build on it. But I do also do other, I was going through a phase, obviously can't do it at the moment, but a lot of climbing, which I found really helped with, particularly handheld operating actually, because really built leg muscle. And generally throughout quarantine, I've had a personal trainer that I've had on Zoom, so that when I go back to work, that I'm not, you know, all wobbly everywhere and no muscle anymore. So yeah, I've been spending quarantine, definitely my main focus has been working out, so that when I do go back, I have some kind of you know, base on which I can build on again. But it's sort of like you start a job and you kind of got energy, but if you've had like a bit of time off, you kind of through the job you build on those muscles again and again. So
that's wonderful. Janice, did you have any training tips that you might be able to offer?
The same thing, I would say, definitely once you're working consistently, boy, you're really in dynamite shape. But you know, standing around for 10 or 12 hours a day, I'm knock on wood lucky that I haven't pulled a hamstring, because your hamstrings get short. All of that stretching kind of goes out the window for at least my world, and it's kind of an accident waiting to happen. So any amount of physical conditioning you can do is going to put you ahead of the game, because as I have learned over time, you know, they're just as likely to ask you to do a running shot at 2 a.m. and you've been there for 8 or 10 hours. And like, okay, they're not going to go, oh, it was 2 a.m. on the slate. No, there's no time on the slate. They're just going to say you sucked on that shot.
Yeah.
Oh, it was 6 weeks and we were tired and it was 2 a.m. They don't care. So that's the you've got to be good enough at that moment to pull off the 2 a.m. running after you've been sitting all day. Or standing all day and you're hamstring and you're cranky and you're whatever you are. So that's the piece of the puzzle. The other, as we talk about affirming women and all of these other kind of discussions, the more physically fit you are, I'll say this, the less likely somebody's going to walk up and give you crap, okay? If you have a certain presence and you know, you missed that mark over there, or whatever the sentence is, in a lot of ways, I think they're going to give you a lot less about that in a, I'll call it an imposing way, okay? You know, I take the extreme, you're a Navy SEAL, you're a Navy SEAL shape. First of all, the 2 a.m. running is not going to bother you. And number two, you do have a physical presence. I mean, you work out, you stand up straighter, you have core strength, you have all of those skills just tucked right in your system. And it keeps us all also from being our own worst enemy in our off time, you know, where like this pandemic, we're all sitting around gaining 10 pounds. There are a whole bunch of layers to physical fitness. The other, as I am on this subject, I did at one point some martial arts, kind of rudimentary martial arts things. And when you see a hand go by or blur go by, you can react faster. And some of the martial arts are tremendous for just reacting to things that, you know, an actor goes by. Not all these shots happen at a snail's pace. And a hand goes by, you've got to react and keep up with the pan or something. Today's world, everything's available to everyone. So being in better shape is clearly better than being in not good shape. Survivable, and it also depends on the strata of job you're on. If you're on a feature or show or something, there's no way in the world you can show up not prepared to be physically active. If you're on a day player with a little tiny Steadicam and you kind of give out after a few shots, it doesn't matter, or it matters a whole lot less. The bigger the expectation, the bigger the paycheck, the better you've got to be. And that's just part of survivability, and or, as we're all hoping, to rise in our stature and our careers. So that you cannot dismiss this, as a lot of us used to just put it off in some ways. There were very few of us in the early days that spent any time at gyms, but that was just what society didn't do. We didn't spend time at the gyms back then. There was one very famous operator, Bob Euland. He had a staircase built in his backyard. He had 2 or 3 other things built in his backyard, and he would put on the rig and run around his neighborhood. And the neighbors were like, "Oh, there's Bob." And yeah, but he was tremendously physically fit, and in his career showed it. He did amazing things. So how far you take it clearly is a discussion, but yeah, it's kind of not optional if you want to work on this as a living, not just as a sideline.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like, ultimately, if you're like, if you have to say to the DOP or the director, no, I actually can't do another take of that. What you're going to do is, like, you're not going to get hired again, because you're not someone who can give them what they want. And so you have to be able to do that, and you have to do whatever it takes for you to be able to do that. And this is just as simple as that, really.
Yeah, because there are guys or girls or whoever, they can, and they have that expectation. Full Jacket, this, what is it, Scorsese, Coppola film. I think it was a famous operator. They had 35 millimeter film camera, and I think 1,000-foot loads of film. So not just a 400-foot load. I mean, and they were expected to run up sand dunes. Can you imagine how hard that would be? I mean, carrying, 60 pounds, 70 pounds plus the arm, and has to run up a sand dune. I mean, was the expectation. Yeah.
I think that was Jeff Mart, the Steadicam operator, the sand dune mountain man who would run up doing the craziest stuff with the heaviest gear.
Yeah. There are a couple, but Jeff did a ton. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think also nutrition plays a part as well, as like learning to change your eating habits. I know when I graduated college, I was 225 pounds and a pre-diabetic. I come from, an area where that's not our lifestyle to take care of our nutrition, really. And I knew if I was going to pursue Steadicam, I knew, one, that I didn't look the part being that heavy. I also didn't look the part with my gender, but I also knew that I wasn't going to run anywhere with the nutrition and the health and shape I was in. So I changed my whole lifestyle to become a Steadicam operator. I lost, I want to say 40 plus pounds over, the beginning years of my career. I changed my shoes, I changed so much of who I am and how I eat and how I function in order to have longevity, to be able to do those crazy type of shots. And, I want to even be better at it now. And it's like finding the time too, outside of the rig, to constantly keep that routine. When you're, 14 hours a day or something, you just want to sleep. Really, you just want to be left alone, do nothing. But yeah, I think definitely yoga's always been a wonderful, it's a way to repair your body after the damage you've done, or to prevent it. Quick stretch in the morning, couple stretches at night, just every day as soon as you can. Even Pilates, I felt, had been getting the areas where you can't physically get yourself, you get on one of those machines. But,
and also, just going back to the nutrition thing, I think in the US you have like amazing craft services normally, and in the UK we definitely do not have the same level of comfort when it comes to that sort of stuff. But you know, like the 5 o'clock sandwiches and the snacks and all that sort of stuff, I absolutely avoid it, and I bring my actually like. Often like the catering can be quite crap as well in the UK, so there's some amazing people, of course, but I often bring my own food and snacks, or you know, have nuts and fruit and stuff like that, and just things that are better to sustain your energy through the day as well. And I avoid like refined sugars and things like that. So yeah, it's definitely really important to consider that as well.
Had an epiphany one day. I was on some job and sitting in a van going from 6 blocks away to some other place, and my phone wouldn't work, and I'm sitting in a van and I wanted to punch the window out of the van. I was like, why are you so angry? The darn phone wouldn't work. And I was trying to call back about a job, and I had my 3 minutes before we were going to do something. And I'm like, why are you? And nobody knew I was having this moment in the back of the van. And I was like, why are you so angry? What is going on? I hold on, get to the hotel, and you can borrow somebody's phone. Just be cool. And I get to the hotel, and I'm like, what is going on? And, you try not to snack in between meals and things, and lunch was about to come along. And you were like, well, don't have, and I thought, well, I have some juice box in my bag. Drink it. Maybe there's something wrong. And I drank that and felt better in 20 seconds. And I was like, what in the world was I doing? Yeah. And you forget that you get up at 3 a.m, you get ready, you're on set by 6, you're working like a construction worker because call time was 6. By 9, you've already put in a day's work. And no wonder you spent off whatever you've eaten for breakfast. Yeah. That's long gone. No wonder we expect the impossible. Our systems need some food. And ever since then, I started taking the nuts and the peanut butter sandwich and the safeguards, just a little safeguard in case you notice it happening. In craft service may be great, but it's probably 8 blocks away. I can't get to it, and it's in a bag. And I don't care if it's free. I need something here, and I
need the emergency snacks.
Get it. Yeah.
It genuinely, for me, genuinely becomes an emergency. If I'd start getting like a bit eggy, my crew are like, oh my God, get her the snacks. Emergency snacks, she needs it. It's true.
She needs it. But it safeguards you the whole way through. And I have a thermos of coffee. I mean, I had all kinds of stuff that I would have. And after lunch, you eat this decent lunch, and then you sink because now you're happy as a clam. But the last thing you want to do is work out or do whatever you're supposed to do. And that thermos of coffee that again, craft service is a long way away. Would save you, and you'd have people walk by going, "Oh, you have coffee." Yeah, it was life-saving. And the last piece of this puzzle was if you didn't consume all of that stuff during the day, you'd eat it on the way home because you were now also at a deficit again, and your day wasn't over yet. You had to get home and do all the normal life.
Yeah. So you got to have the car snacks as well, guys. You see.
Yeah, the emergency.
I find I don't know if you have it in America. Hippies. They're a chickpea snack. They're a chickpea crisp, and they're excellent. And you make a lot of friends when you have them on set as well, because they're a great sharer, and I've made friends with the lead actors by just being like, hey, do you fancy some hippies? And that also holds you in good stead. People want to be your friend if you also have the great snacks.
Yeah. But the stuff never goes to waste, and it becomes a useful tool, and it's kind of essential. So the nutrition point, to Jessica's point, is essential. And you can go anywhere from the terrible food to the organic, perfect food, but you got to experiment over time. And I would also say, don't expect what you ate 3 years ago to work today. You have to change. So if you took peanut butter before, now maybe it's something else.
I think this might tailor on to what we should talk about. So bringing your own food is probably going to be something that might be wise when you get back out there in the world after all that's going on with the virus stuff. I've done like 2 small shoots, and I will tell you the most dangerous part of shooting right now is going to eat with everyone or trying to eat. So it's like, have your own snacks, have your own stuff, prepared each day until we know what's going on. If you plan to go to work, have your own stuff. That's if you want to be safe, that's the safest way. So take those nutrition tactics that you learned over the length of your career and you haven't been doing lately, revisit them, because that's where we're at. We're going back to our roots now to get back out into society.
That was a really great discussion. I feel, in all honesty, on very relevant topics that people don't really think. Everyone loves talking tech, but we have to tech ourselves too. We need to take care of ourselves so that we can do the jobs. Chris, do you have one from the audience for us?
I do. I have one from Alejandro Fuenmayor, and this is really interesting because we all know that set is never perfect. So do you have any stories when the gear has failed, and what did you have to do to repair it and save the shot?
I think Janice might have a good story there, or Ilana.
Go, Ilana. Give me.
Oh, do you know what? I can't think of one off the top of my head. I have an amazingly reliable rig. It's great. I can't. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything.
A small one. The rig was fine, but in the days of fairly big video cameras, we were shooting in some attics, some kids scene, and somehow we were walking on carpet, a lot of carpeting, and somehow there was noise. So they said, take your shoes off. So we all took our shoes off and we're all walking around there in our socks, and everything was fine, and we're shooting, hang the rig up, take the rig back up, and then, wow, that camera's not working anymore. And nobody could figure out why, And I have to say, many years later, or whatever time later, I think static electricity. I think when I set it down, then went to pick it back up, I popped a circuit. So the static electricity, and I think this whole shoot was scrubbed because there were no cameras, replacement cameras back then. But static electricity in socks at some point had done me in. In the early rigs, there were some issues with high voltage in the base. Oh yeah, tremendous high voltage in the base, because all that base was electronics to make that monitor very bright and very green. And none of those, you had to stick a screwdriver in and focus the monitor at some points. And you were highly warned to be very careful where you stuck the screwdriver, because if you missed, it would destroy your sled, or some amount of bad stuff would happen to your sled. But there was an awful lot of voltage, high voltage in those early sleds. Wow. So just funny as can be, but I'll have to think of something where the gear failed.
I have, during season 1 of Sex Education, we were one of the first, I think we were the second production to use the Sony Venice camera, and they were still kind of in beta mode, and we had, I think, 3 bodies, and they were still developing a lot of the software and things like that, and So when I first put that on the rig, I mean, luckily we sort of worked it out in prep, but it was a bit of a headache that the way it powered, it just drained the batteries like so quickly, and it would flash 12 volts or like under, I can't remember whatever it was, and it would be like, oh God, we're about to lose battery. And it was all fresh batteries, but we kind of found a system to make it work. I mean, luckily, you know, we had the prep time to sort of do all that, and so when we shot, it was kind of just after every single take, it was like block battery in, changing batteries really regularly, which was a massive headache, and it's props to the camera team for constantly, it was like every single time, dock it in, like out, and you know, it only came out when the rig was up and things like that. So that was definitely super annoying. It's kind of it's a lot better now, I think, with Venice, but yeah, luckily in that case, we sort of had the prep to deal with that annoyance.
At the workshops, the batteries were so iffy back then. They would talk to you about how to shoot if you had no monitor, because at some point everybody had an instance where there was no monitor, and it was one of the exercises of trying to imagine your shots if you have no way to see it. And by the head shaking, I think you guys have probably been there.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna share with you all, I had a monitor go down on set, and I actually didn't have my backup monitor with me at the time. I think it was being repaired, but I had been sold a monitor that was faulty. I think the whole Steadicam industry knows Cinetronic monitors tobacco. But for some reason, these monitors could not read Sony cameras. And I showed up on set, and the camera wasn't what they told me it was. It was actually like an F3 or something. It was an older Sony model that my monitor was not going to see that image. And I didn't have my backup monitor, so I quickly turned around to my AC and I was like, do you have a spare focus monitor? And they said yes. And they gave me a small HD, tiny little monitor. And I did my little 1980s MacGyver fashion and made a little monitor mount for it on my rig within probably a half hour of figuring it out. And I made it work to get through the shot. It was hard seeing in daylight with the sun shining over my head with a small HD monitor that, wasn't prepared for that type of atmosphere. But I was able to get through the shot in the day by taking the HD monitor, fastening it to my monitor bracket and my other monitor. So it was like a dual monitor, but it was just the HD one on top of it. But thank goodness the camera department, usually there's a spare monitor somewhere, and it was the director's monitor. It wasn't being used. So we snatched it up and made my rig work and got through the day, and we did a great job that day.
Yeah, I actually did have, now that you're saying that, I did actually have the exact same thing happen. It was just like a short film, and I cannot remember what the equipment was. It was a really long time ago, but same thing, and for whatever reason I couldn't get the image to my monitor, and I can't remember why, but same thing, there was another monitor, and again I just basically plopped that monitor onto it and got through it. But there was one shot that I did once on a show a few years ago, and the DOP Giulio Beccari is a great guy, and he lit this scene. I absolutely loved it. It was brilliant, but he lit it so that there was it was a long corridor, and there was like a light, so beam coming through that window, and like further down there's a beam coming through that way, and there was like a backlight in the hallway sort of around the corner, and we were doing this shot where we're in front of him and we're coming round. But it was like super contrasty light, so it was only really lit when he went through the light, and it was like quite a long way between, and it was one of those things where it's like, right, we're like, go, no rehearsal, just do this take and off you go. And I realised I didn't, between those lights there was like quite a long time, and I was like, I was exactly what Jan said. I was just imagining holding that frame and imagining what it would possibly look like, because all of a sudden I saw absolutely nothing on my monitor, and then you got to the next line, I was like, oh my god, it's in frame, that's great. And then I was like, wow. And then we finished the take, and they were like, right, yep, that's great, we're moving on. I was like, oh right, God, okay. It's like, but yeah, imagining what the shot is a great one, definitely.
Yeah,
That's great.
absolutely.
Thank you. Carly, if you had any more questions, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I have one for Janice. I'd be especially interested in what the first rig you had and how long it took you to find or alter your gear for you.
I took the Steadicam workshop with Ted Churchill and Garrett Brown and all those guys in the initial days. And Ted was selling his Model 2 to buy one of the original Model 3s. And so I got his rig, a whole bunch of, financing and all kinds of things. And I got it. And I ended up, he was a small, pretty small guy. And the vest worked fine. Over time you have to, the pads wear out and stuff, and you fix those and all of that. As uncomfortable as they look, the vests are actually very comfortable, and the tighter they are, the better they feel, because as you pick up the weight, the front spar, the centerpiece of the vest, pulls away, and it feels kind of wonderful. And you have this great device that is very snug, so it doesn't twist on you. But over years, I had a couple of times when you just get these pressure bruises on your hip pointers. And those were miserable to work through, and you try additional foam. And if you know anything about Steadicam, if you push the bottom of the vest out, it changes how the rig hangs on you and stuff, which is some adjustments that they have available to you. But you end up with, that was my, maybe Model, eventually that was the Model 3 in my 2C camera. So eventually you kind of tweak it. But in between, I had done hundreds of jobs with the vest as it was, in pretty stock fashion. One of those odd details that I think other people are doing now, which is in your haste to get out of there at the end of every night, you would squish the vest down, stick it in the vest case, stick the arm in the center, close up the vest case as soon as possible, and then throw it in your car and throw the gear in your car, because everybody wants to get out of there after a long day. Over time, I think the next time I took out the vest, as human nature, I never reset the length. And I have to say, some of the guys, and they have these vests that seem tremendously short. I always thought the vests were supposed to hit you on the hip pointers, on those hip points. And I see, I'll call it the guys or other operators with vests that seem very, very short. And so anyway, they seem to be making a living and happy as a clam, so who's to say? But you end up with vests that morph for the weirdest reasons. And sometimes over time and lots of use, the sweat and all the craziness accumulates, and a good fitting vest will suddenly be not as good fitting, and it just kind of needs reset, like washing the pads and playing around with the straps that may or may not fit as well as they used to 6 months ago. And then, God forbid, after this pandemic, none of the vests are going to fit us. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think I had a relatively short learning curve to get the vest to work. And then you keep tweaking the gear. But back then, you either did film or you did video, and the processing part of the Steadicams back then were this electronics card and junction box, and I had one from Ted, which was perfect because it fit everything, and I got I'll call it tricked into swapping it with someone. And I ended up having essentially to redo that junction box because I now had one that wouldn't do film. Oh, you do video, you do this other one. And they kind of tricked me into swapping. So that was maybe the worst thing among a million other things. But convincing your relatives when you've just shown up with this, very tens of thousands of dollars worth of gear in 3 cases that you made a wise choice. It's a hard one. Because they look at you like, oh my God, you got taken.
Yeah, actually, I remember when I bought my pro rig that I have now. When I went to the bank to do the bank transfer to buy it, they went, "Oh, that's so exciting! You buying a house?" No, I'm not.
Well, I tell everybody I'm wearing my house.
Yeah.
That's really it. I chose a rig over a house.
Yeah.
That's all great. Merlin, do you have another one for us possibly?
Yeah, I recently just bought a new rig, but I have kind of a combination question from several attendees in the idea of jumping in. When is the right time to buy a rig? And what do you look for in buying, say, your first rig? And what do you typically like to do in those first steps? Do you like to borrow someone else's rig, or do you recommend just saving up and going for it?
My experience was that like I said before, I started on a really small rig with like 5D, and I kind of worked my way up. So I then sold that and I got a slightly bigger one. Like the Pro that I have now is actually my 5th rig. Before I got my Pro, I did have a friend who was also a Steadicam operator, and he had a Tiffin Shadow, I think. And so my first couple of bigger jobs, that one where I'm stepping off the platform from the car, that was actually, it's funny that I've got a video of that, because that's actually my very first day on a proper drama set. And that was what I was welcomed with, which was amazing. But I borrowed his rig for that, and there were other things. And then it was kind of around that time where I was like, I'm sort of getting these gigs. I was really lucky that I had an agent at that point who took me on and was, helping me to meet people and things like that. So I kind of, it was at that point that I was like, I'm ready to drop the big bomb, and get a loan and sell everything else that I had and buy it. But I would say that I really found it very, very useful starting on rigs that were really rubbish, because with any gear, if you can learn on something, if you can get good on something that is really, really hard to use, then by the time you get something that is a lot easier to use, i.e. a pro rig, you're going to be bloody amazing. So I definitely recommend to anyone who I teach, get one of those cheap rigs and just fly it around your house, get used to it. If you get good at that, then you'll be amazing.
I'll throw in so the first thing anybody's got to do is take a workshop.
Yeah.
Okay. It's foolish to buy any gear. And if you look at eBay, there's like 15 pages of Steadicam stuff. And from a $500, no offense, Chinese rig to, a relatively $1 million whatever rig. There's no way to discriminate what is good or bad. Okay, so, and also you know nothing. You may be a successful camera person, but you still know nothing. You have to go see whether this is interesting to you enough to drop a couple of grand on a workshop. It's tax deductible. So if you're going to spend 50 grand, spend 2 grand, okay, on a workshop. So do that. Then it also comes down to everybody wants to work on movies, so that we know that's the given. But if you're living in a town that is 1 million people or 50,000 people, it's crazy to buy a $50,000 rig if you live in a town with 20,000 people. There is no way in the world that makes sense. So you have to assess several things to decide, and wholeheartedly you have to start with something, baby steps. And we've had lots of people over the years that have had, I want to do this, and somebody, a family member, here's the rig that you told us you wanted, and they get it. And they have no clients, they have no experience, they have no jobs, they have no perspective. And I'll have to say the cliche, they have not earned it, and they fail miserably as a rule. Not maybe everybody, but as a rule. And this sounds really terrible, but a lot of times at the workshops, we would kind of keep an eye on that person because we knew that rig would be for sale cheap in 6 months. Okay, so as mean as that sounds, but they would always sink without a trace. That if you're going to put in the effort on a small rig and show the fortitude to keep pushing forward and getting jobs and getting beaten up a little bit and learning, like Ilana just said, and if I did it with this rig, the next rig is even better, and you evolve because over time now you know operators in your area, and yes, your relatives see that you are serious about this. By the time you do get your fuller size rig for whatever market you're in, you are ready for it. But in some ways, the worst thing in the world is to get dumped on with this very expensive piece of gear that you are frankly not prepared to deal with.
Yeah, I completely agree. And in that time where I was, like I said, in my sort of early days of working with those small rigs, I did the Tiffin Gold course with Jerry Holway, which was totally invaluable, and it was amazing. And I met great people along the way as well. So yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, rig can become a money pit if you really don't know what you're doing with it. I mean, everybody, we have the dream, we want to create smooth shots, we think we can, we don't need a workshop or we don't need film school. Yes, that's all great, but the investment becomes, there's more of a responsibility than just buying the gear.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much money. You have to really know, that you're going to enjoy it, that you're going to be ready for those hours and the brutal work, and be good at it. You have to know so much. You have to be so prepared before actually buying, properly dropping that kind of money on the rig, for sure.
And everyone, well, I'm prepared. I know if, no offense, if you think you know, you don't know. Because you just have to live some of those experiences that you don't even get to until you're in that environment.
I think the last session, Jeff said that it takes about 5 years for an operator to really learn something.
Yeah, exactly. And I liken it to jumping off a cliff. Once you jump off the cliff to buy the gear, you've got to think before you jump off the cliff and have something going so that it's not that horrible of an experience. But you don't do that until you make some kind of commitment to, I went to the workshop, I learned stuff, I am doing whatever it is that I think I'm doing. And then along the way, if you're in a smaller market, you may be stuck with small projects, and along the way you may have to move, and that's no easy commitment for a personal life or a family or an environment. Indianapolis, I won't insult the rest of the world, is a small market near me. Guy there bought $50,000 worth of gear. There's no way in the world that makes sense that he could pay that off. He spent a tremendous amount of time traveling to other markets to make that work. But now there's a lot of gear in all those other markets he used to travel to. Are they going to pay him to travel there when there are probably equally good or maybe also as good people in those markets he used to travel to. So his premise that he can pay off $50,000 worth of gear and make a living at it would work 10 or 15 years ago, but not today. So it always comes back down to money, too. You have to look at where you are. A friend in Nebraska, even a smaller area, you could be the world's best Steadicam operator, bar none, but they are not going to pay you rates that will justify owning expensive gear. They say we have $400, that's it. It isn't that you don't deserve it, that's what we got.
That's really great. We're gonna do just a few more from the audience. Chris, if you have one ready, I'd love to hear it.
Perfect. I have one from Imogen Hughes. What is the most difficult but exciting shot that you have executed so far?
Jessica, go.
Oh, actually, this past year, I worked on a show called Greenleaf, season 4, and season 5. Actually, it's probably going to start airing on OWN Network in June and on Netflix after that sometime. But there was this take where Lynn Whitfield is giving a sermon in a church, and I was supposed to, well, actually, I was sitting out. I was benched. It was the technocrane's job to get the entire sermon, high, wide, and come in and tight, and, show the whole church and the atmosphere. But the technocrane was not working. So the DP turned around and had me come in to the shot and Steadicam the whole sermon. And she's praying, she's reaching her hands up to the sky, she's getting on the ground, she's moving around. They have these heavenly, Lico's just shining right at her, so as she's getting flared, and it's just beautiful. And I don't know what happened. Somewhere in there, it just started moving me. She was going one way, I was going the other, and it was just like we were perfectly in sync with each other. And I mean, she gave a real sermon. She wrote it herself, and I'm not too religious, but something magical happened in those moments where I caught everything. Everywhere she went, I went, or if she looked, I took the camera there. She went up, I went high, low, whatever. And it was 12 minutes of one take. It wasn't meant to be a oneer. I don't think it's going to be edited that way. But after the shot, I was drenched, and DP ran over. He was like, all that was usable. I was like, awesome. And I sat the rig down, and I went out the room, down the hall, and found an empty room and sat there, and I cried like a little girl. I cried and cried and cried. It's because, as camera operators, I'm sure you all know, we absorb that emotion. We absorb that. We have to. It's our jobs. In order to help tell a story, we have to be there with the story. We have to read the script. We have to. So I absorbed it all. Everything. She blasted. I was the first person to take it. And so, yeah, it was the most beautiful experience. And it was something that I think I got into the business for, to be able to create that kind of art and to be in tune with the characters and make those frames and catch those moments. That's it.
That's awesome. Ilana, do you have a favorite?
I don't really have a favorite, but I do just want to touch on what Jess was saying and just generally say about that those moments that are the kind of the most wonderful when you do feel really incredibly in tune with the performance and you're kind of really moving with it. I shot a show called The Bisexual a few years ago. I was the A camera operator on it, and we had quite a lot of sex scenes in it, and the director was also the lead and also the writer, and so it was really interesting from that perspective, shooting that, because she was in probably 90% of it. So we'd shoot something and she'd sometimes watch playback, but then sometimes she'd just say Ilana, what do you know, how was that? And I'd sort of say yes or no, or whatever. And but there was this one particular scene that was there was a sex scene, and it was only me allowed in the room because it was Desi and Maxine Peake, and to do this scene they did actually I think they were pretty much completely naked actually in the scene. I can't quite remember, but it was like they basically didn't allow anyone else. In fact, I think they even had a boom on an arm. So in that scene it was Desi just entirely relying on me to, and they only wanted to do it once. They just wanted to do it once. They were happy to kind of like in between, like Desi kind of asked me, did that look okay, what looks good, da da da. But then that was it, you know. Once they were out of the room and clothed, they weren't going to do it again. And so yeah, it was just one of those scenes where it's like, as the operator, you had to be completely there with it at all times, and kind of like also, I mean, it was also like directing it as well. But what I think once you do, as Jess was saying, I think once you do become in tune with those scenes, it's such an amazing experience. And those days where you kind of go home and you're like, oh God, what did I? It's like that thing that I did today. Wasn't that cool? Wasn't that amazing? And you know, it's amazing when it really touches you.
I don't know that I have a specific shot. Rookie of the Year, they had 15 minutes between Cubs games, and the Cubs obviously tremendously popular. The stadium was absolutely filled, 50,000+ people, and this young kid he's called in from the bullpen to pitch, and he's like 15 years old, and it's this it's like a giant commercial for the Cubs, the whole movie. But they put the director on the PA system, and he tells the crowd, this is what we're going to do. And so the first game is over, all the team leaves the field, they leave the dugouts, they run out their actor players. We rehearsed this in a little league field ahead of time because there was one take. And so I start with the young kid in the warm-up area, lead him onto the field, lead him up to the pitcher's mound. The coach gives him the ball. We circle around him in a 360 continuous shooting. Lose the coach, do a point of view of the young kid walking out as I walk off the field, and then hide in the dugout while they do 2 other shots with a couple other cameras buried in the stands. So they told the assistant, I knew what I was supposed to shoot, and we shot, and they told the assistant, don't stop film even if she falls down, which they didn't tell me. And we did the whole thing with 50. Now the whole crowd is all amped up, screaming chanting this kid's name. So of course there's one take and that's it. It wasn't particularly tight lens, but we got it. So it worked, but it was one of those, A, don't screw up, and B, you're in a lot of home movies right now, because everybody at that stadium, I'm sure I'm in all those pictures, but they got the entire stadium chanting, and they have 9 prop ball players, me, an assistant, and the kid actor. So we pulled it off, but at the end, the director hugged me because he was like, we got it. So it worked. So yeah. It worked. Yeah, that's my story.
Thanks, Janice. That's awesome. I love that you worked on Rookie of the Year, and all these different amazing movies that honestly are what's inspired me to become who I am today. But I watched that movie over and over again. I was in love with Thomas Ian Nicholas, the star actor, you know. There were all those little star actors that were those young kids.
They brought in another operator to do this running scene. They didn't ask me to do the running scene for some reason. it wasn't, I don't think, being mean. They just assumed I couldn't run. So there was a running scene in O'Hare. So somebody else did that shot.
What was it like working on Groundhog Day? That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, as they
yeah, we have this. You can talk over the clip.
As the DP said, John Bailey said, what you never think of is from the first frame of the first day of shooting, we got to match the weather for 3 months. You never think about that. So they hopped around this square on just, okay, let's do scene 22. It's partly overcast. And they go do a different scene, so the schedule changed completely. But the first shot was a walk. The second shot was pretty fast. And the third one, I was being pulled on one of those dollies that hold sandbags because he was nearly running. So other than that, that is uneventful. But the video assist was terrible in those days, and it did not work well. And they could not see whether the shot was any good. And they kept saying, how was it? How was it? Because I wasn't sure the cut, how he leaves the frame. And I was reluctant to say we had it. And the first AC, this very famous guy, said, never sign off on a shot they haven't seen. And eventually, I think they just believed that they had it, and we finished. And it worked out. But I was supposed to do scene with them eating ice cream. But again, oh, it's perfectly the right weather. Let's do them sitting at a table eating ice cream. So I didn't do any other scenes I was supposed to on another day. But that ice cream scene was supposed to be a Steadicam shot. So other than that, Bill Murray later on in a radio interview I heard wasn't thrilled with the director. I guess they were tremendous friends, but the repetitive nature of the movie, I can't fathom how they kept it all straight. And, okay, let's do take 3 of this shot. Now we've got take 3 of the second version of that shot. I mean, kept it all straight, and it had to be murdered on the actors to just continuously redo the scenes in a slightly different way. So it seemed like it worked, but the movie was tremendous. But for all of how hard it was with the technology of the day, had to be hard, just to say the least. Yeah.
Well, the shot turned out nice.
Yeah, that would work great. Yeah.
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 Thank you for that information.
Cool, thank you.
Chris, do you have maybe one more from the audience?
Yes, this one is from Kat Spencer. Is there anything that you have learned through your experience that you would tell your younger self? And how has that experience changed your operating?
That's a good one. I like that one.
There's something I've figured out over the years. We are our own worst enemies. We all have those, I micromanage, I worry too much, whatever our little personality traits are, whether you're an accountant or a lawyer or whatever. If you're a lawyer and you try and micromanage an office or your assistant, it ain't gonna work. There's not enough energy in the world. There's not enough time. And the person ain't gonna work for you for very long because nobody wants to be micromanaged. So as we rise in our world of operating and interacting in this group art form, I think we have to tamp down some of our worst traits and get them under control because they don't help us. And, I worry, or I try and be too helpful, or whatever. And we're all guilty of it. That's the stuff that sometimes affects your career more than just going out and did you keep the guy in the picture kind of stuff is my 2 cents worth on that question.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think it's great to strive to be the best that you can be and the best version of yourself, and to kind of always strive to be better at what you're doing, but also to not like beat yourself up if you're not doing everything to your standard of perfect all the time, and to not like worry about that later as well. And yeah, I think I kind of want to echo ultimately what Janice is saying. Really, just be kind to yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, I'm going to do one last one because I like it a lot. Peggy Peralta, thank you for being here, Peggy. Any advice on how to keep honing our craft? What do you do to challenge yourself if you're feeling stuck, or if you're on a plateau, and need to improve?
I don't have an answer to that one. Why don't you guys go?
I don't know. I definitely try to. I mean, it's not. We can't always pick and choose the projects that we work on, because things fall in our lap and we say yes or no, or the next thing does, or whatever happens. But it's definitely, of course, a luxury. But if you can choose what you do, then definitely choose, I guess, a kind of variety of different types of jobs that you take, so that you can kind of mix it up. I mean, I've done several jobs where it's only handheld operating. There's been no Steadicam, and that's been great. And it that also brings like a whole nother perspective on your operating. So doing things like that is also great. Yeah, any kind of I guess variety that you can bring in, and yeah, just learning new things as much as possible. There's so many new technologies out there, so it's great to read up on that and learn what you can to get excited about other tools that you can use.
That's awesome. I think I agree with both you ladies for sure. All the things that we've talked about today. I think in order to keep going, you have to constantly find ways to reinvent yourself as well. If you've hit a plateau, find something new, or revisit what got you in the business in the first place. That might help creating for yourself. I know Peggy very well, and she's also an amazing cinematographer. So it's like maybe bouncing back between different positions, different projects. On one project, you're a camera operator, you're listening to someone. And then another project, you could be the DP or the director, where you're actually giving those directions to everyone. It's constantly putting yourself in situations to communicate. That's always a good way to hone in your craft, learning how to be more vocal and diplomatic and educational all at the same time. And then different ways of physical fitness and just exploring. I've found even just, I was looking into axe throwing. I mean, it's just something so simple. Just finding things that can entertain you, but also keep you, towards the craft that you're going for. And it doesn't necessarily always have to be with a camera. It can be, dancing, take a dance class.
Totally.
There's so many different things.
I agree.
There are a bunch of LA guys I know that they'll occasionally get together with a few of them and challenge each other with shots that they would not have done on their own. And, peer pressure is good, because, your best friends are not always going to agree with you, and they're going to pound on you to be better. And you're like, wow, I got smoked by that guy. There are all those folks that are tremendous at these whip hands, and I would be appalled to show them my whip hands, or appalled to show them my running. And yet, if I was true to, I'll call it the craft, I would be in there fighting to be better. So peer pressure is a good thing in your pals you get together with, and you run around in somebody's yard, is a wonderful time that, you're going to this is why you do your vest this way. This is how you balance. This is how you set up. This is the bracket you use for this. All those things are really good. So the networking with your pals, because the other part of this is if you're genuinely kind of friends with those folks, hey, I got a job I can't do, but Sally can, and you pass jobs along, and you have that network also. So it doesn't have a downside.
That's great. Thank you, and thanks to our attendees for being here and asking all these great questions. Thank you to our guests and our panelists. Next week, we're going to have Kirk Gardner with us, and he's another legend in the game, and we're very excited to have him with us 1 week from now, sharing stories from set and his path. He's a wonderful person, and we could not be more grateful for his time, as well as for yours, Janice and Ilana. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jessica, for having these webinars. It's wonderful. Thank you for setting them all up.
Yeah, it's great. It's great that you're doing it. It's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all for being a part of this, community. And Janice, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. It means the world it literally means the world to the world. You've done so much, and thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I was just trying to make a living.
Same here, but you had to do it first for us to do it.
Thank you.
And also to point out, Kirk Gardner says hello, because he is also a product of your instruction.
Yeah, Kirk took my class and we did a bunch of stuff together. Kirk's great.
Ilana, thank you. It's so nice to talk to you. I've always wanted to meet you in person.
Yeah.
And it's crazy it's on Zoom.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
This
is great.
And our community, the students, Chris and Gabe with Learn Filmmaking, and Matt, our awesome moderator. I really appreciate you guys today. It was a pretty awesome experience, and something I had been looking forward to for a long time.
Cool. Thank you.
Totally.
See ya.
All right, everybody. You stay safe. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Have fun.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.